Hey, what's up guys? I'm Steve Wells and today we are going to be talking about the Altra Provision 4. So this shoe has been around for a little while now, but really got an update in this new model. So some new things going on that we're going to talk a little bit about today. So it has, as always, that kind of foot-shaped toe box wider out in the toe box here so that you have plenty of room for your toes to splay in the end as your foot is bending. Going to also be balanced cushioning, which is Altra's new word for zero drop. So going to be essentially flat from front to back. So the same stack height, the same amount of foam under your heel as the ball of your foot. So like you're standing flat on the floor, to kind of help with that natural gait, allow for that kind of more mid-foot strike, and just be a little bit more kind of natural and healthy for your feet as you're running. I would classify this shoe as a medium cushion guidance, which is Altra's kind of word for stability, but it's not going to be your kind of traditional posted stability shoe. It has these guide rails and it has this other thing, it's called Innovarch, which kind of connects into the laces here. We'll get into in a little bit more detail later on. This shoe is $130. If we throw it on the scale, I've got an 11.5 here. Weighs 10.2 pounds, so as far as weight goes, nothing too crazy going on, not super heavy, not super light, just kind of what you might expect from a shoe like this. If you're looking for any other stats on this shoe, stack height, men's weight, women's weight, that kind of thing, you can find it down in the description. I'll be sure to put it down there. This shoe, I would say, is pretty true to size. Probably go with the size that you wear in other shoes. I wear an 11.5 in most shoes, and that was the size that was working best for me in this shoe. So moving right along, let's get into some pros about the Altra Provision 4. If you've heard me talk about other Altras in the past, I personally like that extra room in the toe box. Might take a little bit of getting used to, but once you get used to it, probably not going to go back. I also like the zero drop platform that a lot of Altras are on. I typically like lower drop shoes. It's not something to be scared of, but might take a little bit of getting used to if you're going from like a 12mm drop or something like that. Another pro is the cushioning. So relatively soft cushioning, I would say. Not a crazy amount of it, but fairly soft for the amount that it has. Another pro is the guide rail here. So I kind of like these kind of dynamic stability systems that some manufacturers are coming out with now that will kind of give you more stability or less depending on how much you need it at the time. And as far as the guide rail itself goes, I think it works. As far as other things go, not so much. My next pro is what I'm guessing the durability will be on this shoe. So you've got lots of rubber on the outsole. This foam tends to stand up for a while, so I think that you'll get a pretty good amount of miles out of this shoe. And my last pro is the sock liner that comes in this shoe. So I don't have them in this pair right now, and that's actually because I've been wearing them in my Escalantes lately. So this sock liner, what they did is they actually put on these little bumps on the entire thing that are supposed to give you a little more kind of tactile feel, as if you're walking on grass or something like that, stimulate your foot a little bit more, which I guess there's science behind, but I can't speak to myself. But I just think it's really comfortable. I love the way that these feel in this shoe, not as much as I like it in some of their other shoes like the Escalante, but I think that this works really well, and I think that this is something that they should move into some of their other models in the future. Something that not everybody's in love with, but I personally am a big fan of these liners. So let's get into some cons about this shoe, and there were some serious cons that I was having with it. So my first con is going to be pretty much this Innovarch as a whole. I love the idea of it, but as far as the execution, I just really don't think it quite is there yet. So the first big thing with it is it has this kind of quadrupled up spot here that is going to land right in like kind of the back of your arch. And while I didn't get any blisters or anything like that from it, it just kind of irritated me a little bit the entire time I'm wearing these shoes. It's like you have like an itchy tag in a shirt or something like that, and it just kind of bothers you just enough that you want to take it off. And that was a big issue that I had with these. Another issue I had with the Innovarch is I was constantly having to readjust my shoes. You kind of have to unlace them completely every time you put it on and kind of readjust it, and then I wouldn't get it quite right, and I would have to stop multiple times during my run to readjust the entire thing, and it was just a little bit annoying. I also noticed whenever I didn't have the liners in here and I had some kind of insert in there, it was pulling and pushing the insert and angling my foot in a weird way. So that's definitely also something to keep in mind if you're not planning on keeping the regular liner in there all the time. Another con is I feel like this shoe is just kind of stiff for kind of how low profile it is. Not a lot of flexibility in there, which might be a good thing for some, but I was not super crazy about it, mostly because it ends up with me kind of feeling like I'm like slapping the ground because I don't have the flexibility that I want in there. Another con I had with this shoe is the heel counter here. So it's not moving on my heel. I felt like it was at first, that I was getting a lot of movement in the heel, but I'm really not. What I think it actually is just the height of the heel. You sit a little bit high in there and it doesn't come up super high on your heel, and so it feels like you're moving in there even when you're not. So if I just wish that this came up maybe like a tiny bit higher, like just like a 1/4 inch or something, I think would make a big difference as far as that goes. Along with having to stop and readjust the laces, I actually also found myself having to stop and retie my laces a lot. So something about these laces, I normally don't double knot my shoes because most shoes you don't need to, but I definitely did have to with these, and even double knotting it sometimes found them loosening up over time. So not only was I stopping to readjust the laces a lot, but also if I wasn't double knotting them, I was having to stop and retie my shoes a lot. I also noticed, I don't know if this is just me, how they fit me, or it's just some weird thing, but in the center here, it kind of bulges out whenever I'm wearing it, which is not like a bad thing. It's not hurting me or anything, but it's just kind of looks weird whenever like this fits, but then it just is like I'm taking up too much room in here, but I don't have like a super high volume foot or anything like that. So maybe it's just the way the arch is pulling or something like that. Another con that I had is kind of the height of this tongue and how high up the laces go. So I do have this laced way up here. I'm not sure exactly how Altra wants you to lace these, but they come in the box with it all the way up like this, so I assume like this, but then the length of the tongue is a little bit short for where the laces are coming on you. So I did sometimes have them kind of going over the top and going straight onto my foot, which was not too much of an issue, but something that I definitely was having a little bit of a problem with. So will I continue wearing the Altra Provision 4? Honestly, I probably won't be putting too many more miles on this shoe. And while that was kind of a long list of cons, none of them are super huge cons for me. So it's definitely a shoe that I could continue wearing. However, it's mostly because of the way this feels on my foot. I just really don't like it. And so if that's not an issue for you, then I think that you would really like this shoe, but that was a big problem for me. So I hope this video on the Altra Provision 4 was helpful. I know there's not a ton of stuff out there on it. I think that's mostly because it came out earlier this year, just as all the COVID stuff was starting up, and so it wasn't the big news at the time. But if you found this video helpful, be sure to like and subscribe down below. Leave any questions you have for me in the comments, and I will talk to you guys next week.